Little Woman is a 2019 American coming-of-age period drama film written and directed by Greta Gerwig. It is the seventh film adaptation of the 1868 novel by Louisa May Alcott. After the Civil War, Jo March resides in New York, earning a living as a writer, while her sister Amy pursues painting in Paris. There, she unexpectedly reunites with Theodore, once a childhood admirer who had proposed to Jo but was turned down. Meanwhile, their eldest sister, Meg, is married to a modest schoolteacher, and gentle Beth falls gravely ill, drawing the family together once more in a time of hardship and reflection. Alright, so I've finally gotten to see the film Little Woman, a highly critically acclaimed film that I've meant to see for a while now, but never got the opportunity to. But now I've gotten to see the film with my mom as well, which was nice. She's read the novel, of which the book is adapted from. But yeah, I mean, after seeing this film, I have to say it is brilliant. I think Greta Gerwig is... I've seen Barbie, obviously, but it sucks I've never seen Little Woman. I still have to see Lady Bird, which is another film she's done. But I think Greta Gerwig is definitely one of the best filmmakers working right now, and definitely probably the top female director working right now. I think her direction has such emotional depth in Little Woman. I thought overall, the transitions between the timelines, which she utilizes a lot throughout the film, I thought overall it was seamless. I do think that the whole non-linear storytelling can be just a tiny bit disorienting, especially since the characters' physical appearances doesn't really change a lot. It's the same actors used both 70 years ago in the past and in the present. And so since the physical appearances they change very little between the past and the present, that was a bit disorienting. But I think what I did love that Greta Gerwig did is that she used a beautiful color contrast that really separated the past and the present. The past has a lot more lively and colorful mood, whereas the present has a much more dark and eerie, sour black mood in a way. So I did really like the color contrast. But I mean, overall, from what I've read online, and especially from my mother, this movie does seem to have a very faithful interpretation of its source material. It was nominated for adapted screenplay at the Oscars, and I genuinely think it should have won, or it could have won. The dialogue is so good in this film, but I think it ended up going to Jojo Rabbit, which is another great film. But yeah, I think performances wise, Saoirse Ronan, I believe this film marked her, or I think she was nominated for an Oscar for another film after this one, but at the time this was her third Oscar nomination, and she was only 25 or something. So I mean, she's definitely one of the best female performers, young performers for sure. She delivers a standout performance as Jo March, who is very fierce and independent and deeply compelling. She was a very compelling lead. Florence Pugh, she also popped off, I think, in that year, 2019. She filmed Little Woman just a few days after wrapping up filming for Midsummer. And so I think she said somewhere that playing Amy was such a therapeutic, treatment for her after doing such a crazy role in Midsummer. So that's nice. But I thought she brought a lot of strength and nuance to Amy. I do think, though, that her romantic arc with Laurie towards the end, that felt a bit rushed, and it felt like it lacked a lot of sufficient development. I understand, it's, of course, with most book adaptations, things will feel rushed, but I did think that particular arc felt a bit rushed. It sort of felt like that bond between them was a bit non-existent at the start. Albeit, a couple glances here and there and tiny crushes, but nothing really, felt completely solid until it went from 0 to 100 towards the end. So I thought that lacked some sufficient development, but I do think Timothée Chalamet himself as an actor, playing Theodore Lawrence as Laurie, he has so much emotional range. I thought he was brilliant. And yeah, I don't believe anybody that says he's overrated. I think he's perfectly rated as a phenomenal actor. I do think, though, that a bit of his mannerisms and a bit of his behavior in this film felt a lot too contemporary and a lot too modern. And so I think that might have been a bit distracting, but overall I think he did well. But yeah, I think everybody else was super, super fantastic. You have Laura Dern as the mother. You have Meryl Streep, who particularly also has very sharp and witty charm. You have Eliza Scarlett, who plays Beth, and Chris Cooper, I thought also did a phenomenal job. He has such emotional subtlety. You know, he's not in the film for too long, but his performance is very subtle, and it's very nice as well. And then of course Emma Watson, who I believe this was her last feature film role before she sort of like disappeared off the face of Hollywood. So it's nice that she ended off on Little Women. She was brilliant in this film too. Visually, this film is stunning. It has great artistic cinematography, especially in the beach scenes. I thought they were particularly animated nicely. In a way, it was almost like animated paintings is a perfect way to describe how aesthetically this film looks. The costume design I thought was authentic. It looked authentic. It was the settings themselves, like the production design, the period settings were beautifully rendered. And I thought that overall enhanced the film's immersive quality. I was really, really immersed into this film. I thought Little Woman also balances humor, it also balances heartache, and it really tackles hope with a very graceful tone. This film is very hopeful towards the end, and it is a bit meta with the whole, the protagonist, Jo, obviously she is writing Little Woman inside Little Woman, so it is a bit fourth wall breaking, but I really liked how they really touched on, inside the film as well, they touched on how to end a book. The woman should be married. And that's the whole issue that's tackled throughout the film. And I loved how they ended it with grace. Everybody really gets a happy ending, basically. And so I really thought this film was especially moving towards the second half. But yeah, I mean, this film really just elicited a whole ton of genuine emotions for me, really authentic emotions, and it never really veered into melodrama, which I like. I never really like when films sort of get a bit too melodramatic, or they teeter onto one specific part of the film that really doesn't exactly matter. But this film really just progressed very smoothly overall. It was uplifting, it was life-affirming, and it definitely resonated, and I mentioned before with the whole females, women like marriage and stuff. It definitely resonates, not into only that time period, but even in current times of societal hardship and gender roles and gender nuances and dynamics. I thought that was particularly relevant. The original score for this film is stirring, and it definitely complements the emotional arcs as well that go on throughout the film. It is heartfelt, it is beautifully crafted. This is a beautifully crafted adaptation with, only just minor flaws that I can name. It's just like flaws in maybe the narrative flow or the structure, or maybe just the character consistency overall. I do like that they use the same actors. I don't think it would have been smart if they used different actors for in the past and then the actors that we have now in the present. I think it's nice that they used the same actors. I just think it's a bit weird that, I only found out until after from my mom that Florence Pugh was meant to be a 13-year-old and the youngest in the past, and then now she's 20. So, it's hard when you have like a 20-something-year-old actress trying to play a 13-year-old. But I think overall they did nice. They did it well. This was a deeply, deeply enjoyable film, emotionally resonant film, and I think it is definitely worthy of the high praise it has gotten, maybe even more. I wish it would have won an Oscar for Greta Gerwig. I think she's a brilliant, brilliant filmmaker, but overall, I think this is a film that is highly recommended for viewing if you haven't seen it already. So I'm going to give Little Women a 9 out of 10. But that's about it. Hope you enjoyed. See ya.